Good afternoon and welcome to The Dish on Divorce. I'm Jennifer Barkin.
And I'm Leanne Townsend.
And today we have a guest who's also a friend of mine. Her name is Esther Halevi. And Esther is so interesting and she's so active politically, helping single mothers, getting single moms back to work. But Esther, if you could tell us, the viewers, a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, obviously that I have a background in helping profession for more than 2 decades. I worked as a first call responder. I work with the most marginalized in the city, with the homeless men and women who have addiction and mental health issues, and part of it in the criminal justice system. I was just talking to Leanne, and I was telling her that I worked with a mental health justice initiative program, people who go through criminal justice system who most of the time are failed and there is nowhere to go once they come out of jail. Helping them with housing. I worked for many years in a supportive housing with abused women. Single Mothers in Toronto came about, actually, I created it on March 12th. I came home and I was quite upset. I met a couple of my friends who thought that as a single mom, I should just find a man and I will be happy. I will get married to a rich man, I will be happy. And I said, no, I need single moms friends because I didn't have any. So I created a group and I went to sleep and I wake up, boom, there's requests. 50, 60 women requested to join. So
when was this? What year?
That was in 2016. And what happened was that someone reached out to me in that group, and the woman was pregnant and her boyfriend beat her and she ran away from him and she had nothing. So I reached out to one of my greatest friends that I have, Daniela Gold. She's a real estate agent. And some of the proceeds, she helped me with other people. I also help refugees. And one thing after another, car full of diapers, clothes, gift cards, everything. And I went there. It turned into a movement. So what happened was that there was such a need for a group like that. Women will reach out to me. There were a lot of families, single moms with food insecurities. Somebody needed furniture. Someone needed to flee abusive relationship. And luckily, I met a wonderful woman called Lily Chang, and she is the creator of North York Moms. And right now, she's running an agency called Community Link North York. And one after another, it just took off, and we started to have huge events. We had Carlo Parentello, who owns Chateau Le Jardin. He created a beautiful event for the moms. We're like 600 women and children.
Wow.
And every year, we have one member is a male in our admin group. So there are other people joined. Josh Pearson, he is just a mensch. So he created a program, Menches Helping Single Moms. So what they do is they go around once a month, twice a month, and helping single moms to fix little things that needs to be fixed. And once a year for Christmas, he will create this wonderful event with a bunch of men who will go to the kitchen and cook and deliver food. And we had a room where moms and children could go and get clothes and the gifts. We continued doing that until COVID started. And for the Mother's Day events, a lot of our work involves with abused women. And when Jennifer came on board, I added her to the group, and she's been a blessing to that group. Because what I loved about Jennifer, that a lot of lawyers, we have to be honest, a lot of lawyers, a lot of people who work in this profession, obviously, there's a lot of money to be made when in a legal system. Jennifer helped selflessly. I mean, she was always there for the moms. I will never forget the day when we had this call from one of the moms. Her child wasn't breathing. And Jennifer and I, 6 o'clock in the morning, we ran. And it's like things like that I want to bring up because social media, you never know where to reach out. And this social media group that turned into largest grassroots groups. And Jennifer and I, we went, and I will never forget the moment that her and I stood in front of this lifeless child. I can't even tell you that she was there for the mother, and she was there for me, because it was one of the most difficult times for the group, for the mother. It's been tremendous what she has done for the group. We continued during COVID. What happened was, obviously everybody was having difficulties, and I mobilized the community, and we were delivering food. But demographic has changed. A lot of families with both parents, seniors, we were giving out food for homeless. Also, my background includes helping refugees, and it was a lot of work. What I love the most from this group, a lot of other groups branched off. There's a group in the Peel, in Scarborough, and then we have also in Aurora, and it's like beautiful community was created.
Is it on Facebook, or where
it's on Facebook?
Okay.
But I had to make it secret, because what happened was that I needed to protect identities of moms who are fleeing domestic violence, and myself. We were talking earlier. I received a threatening message from one of the ex-husbands of the mother that I helped. So I needed to protect the moms, and unless I add you to the group, and
sometimes people sneak on if they can.
Like, do they impersonate that they're a woman or something?
They will take screenshots. So that's why you're so careful with even allowed. You have to be vetted to get into this group. But how many members now?
More than 1,000, but I'm very careful. There are a lot of other single mom groups started after I started, but because there's a lot of, we're like a organization, but we don't get paid. And I have to mention a wonderful admin group, Lily Chang, Sarah Fong, Josh Pearson, Jessica Yang, and the wonderful Jessica Gilbert, who does a lot of work in a community of Jewish single moms. And Liz Vogue, she's also one of the admins in North York Moms. North York Moms has been amazing. And what happened was that a lot of other mom groups joined, and Pink and Bloom, Nicole Bloomberg was amazing. And I have to mention Brittany Sultan, Everything Jewish Toronto. I mean, every time I make a post that somebody needs food or anything, they're always ready. But right now I'm not begging as much, because I created a company, cleaning company. Because what I noticed that a lot of moms, when they leave abusive relationships, they were stay-at-home moms, and there were gaps in their resume. First thing, I asked them, what can you do? So cleaning was one of the options.
That's amazing that you did that, though.
So I actually kind of was forced into it. I said, I'm not business savvy. I have never done business in my life. And I created this company, and then COVID started. Mm-hmm. So what I wanted to do initially, I wanted to do commercial cleaning. So the moms could go to school during the daytime, and in evenings and weekends, they can work. And eventually some of them were on welfare. They gradually get off welfare. And I mentored them, and they can have their own cleaning business. But unfortunately with COVID, there's so many commercial businesses are closed. And I have some moms who are generational welfare recipients. Can you imagine? I had one mom who was 14 or 13 when she had a baby. Her mom was on welfare. Her grandparents were on welfare. Imagine that, breaking a cycle of poverty.
So hard.
I mean, even if you say cleaning business, but it's some sort of entrepreneurship as well. And it's a learning experience for myself as well. So even employees that I work with right now, they're going to school in September, which is not really good for me, because they're such a wonderful employees. But I work with them, and some of the proceeds from the company goes towards, that's why I'm saying I'm not begging for food as much, because I have a certain percentage I put towards the helping the moms. For example, it takes a village. Sometimes I will see a post or Hungry North of Toronto or Single Mothers in Toronto. And that's how it all started.
That's amazing. Now, like, the members of the group, like, do they have to come from a certain demographic or any sort of cultural background? Is it open to anyone who?
Woman. It's all for women.
Yeah.
And we're not registered, but I'm thinking because we do so much work in the community. Once I was sitting in an agency with one of the moms that I was helping. She was fleeing abuse. And somebody else was sitting in a waiting area. She said, you know what you should do? You should meet this woman who has done wonders for my niece. I said, really? She is a community advocate, but I don't know. I don't have her number, but I could tell you her name. I said, what is her name? And I'm getting excited that maybe somebody else could help this one. Her name is Esther Halevi. And the mom was about to tell her. So she was, I didn't say anything, but we do a lot of work. And I'm thinking, because I always want to do this as, we as Jews say mitzvah or chesed. I wanted to do this because I always dealt with human crisis. But I think also turning this group into nonprofit organization also can create jobs. Crisis intervention workers, the coordinators, housing coordinators, and I have so many talented women in the group. I can't even tell you. So many gifted, wonderful women who came out of abusive relationships, and their self-esteem and their confidence was kind of destroyed by abusers. But I discovered so much potential with this woman. They're so creative. And I'm thinking of taking that route right now. We'll see what happens. I was contemplating, but I think more and more I think about it. I would like this grassroots social media group that I created so many years ago. I want to take a next step.
That's amazing.
I think it's amazing that within the group, people can get help no matter what time, day or night. I know on my phone,
12 o'clock at night.
12 o'clock, doesn't matter what time.
Esther is messaging.
You know, but it becomes a group, right? That somebody's in trouble. We have a mom in trouble and she has to flee. And what can we do? And people stepping up and volunteering and just even giving safety tips, right?
Yeah.
Like as simple as you need a code word. And you need somebody who has this code word to be able to call, recommending lawyers, the domestic violence legal aid number, lawyers
Resources, giving them resources.
Legal aid, some really good resources, because if you don't know anything, number one, if you're in a panic, you don't all of a sudden turn into a researcher. So just to be able to get these resources to you quickly, easily, no matter what time, I mean, it's wonderful.
We also, a lot of moms that reach out while they're married. So safety plan, providing, I have one mom, it took her 3 years. Actually, she's my employee now.
Oh, wow.
3 years it took her to leave her, and you give them time.
Yeah.
Because I've been in a situation like that. It took me so many years to live on abuse. Like a funny thing is that I run a group for single moms, helping survivors of domestic abuse, but I have never told my story to anybody. So I've been down that road, and I understand, because you'll see people, oh, why don't you just leave? It's not as easy. It's so simple. I mean, those people that, and I also have to say that there are also men who are being abused as well. Yeah. I helped quite a few in that situation. It's not as easy and simple. And sometimes in the middle of the night, we had one case, I don't remember if you remember, mom was in the washroom and we were on the phone with her and waiting for the police to arrive. But one thing I say, call 911, and there's a wonderful resource available in the city, 211. 211. And I say, if you get a lousy operator who is not as resourceful and doesn't really give you a lot of information, call again. 24 hours, 7 days a week. This city-run agency, they provide a lot of information. The problem is right now is lack of shelters, lack of affordable housing.
Lack of beds, I guess. Like they're all like capacity.
It is so much difficult nowadays, the affordable housing and the social subsidized housing. Before, priority housing, you could get a housing in 3-4 months. Right now, the policies that they have, you have to apply within 3 months. Since you leave your abuser, you have to have a police report. You have to have a proof that you lived with him. Also, we need to say that there were a lot of people who abused the system, and they had to put that in place. But it's very difficult these days to leave an abusive relationship, especially during COVID. I had a mom, 8-month pregnant mom. We called the police, and the police told her that there's no shelters, there's no space in COVID. It was very difficult.
So if there's a listener out there who's listening to this, who, you know, doesn't have much money, so they can't afford to just, you know, go to a hotel. They don't have family in the city, and they're stuck in this home with their abuser, and they don't feel safe. And it's not a crisis where, say, if he's actively, beating them and she calls 911, but she's living in this situation. What advice do you have for that person on how to get out?
If she is in immediate crisis, 911, obviously. Yeah. Don't call Esther, don't call anybody else, 911. But also do your research. 211 will give you all sorts of information. On social media, you also, in those moms groups, there's anonymous posts. You could send a question and you get so much information. For example, in our group, we have a resource, a list of lawyers who accept legal aid reviews. But I would say do your research, prepare yourself, and always tell somebody that you're dealing with it. See someone. There's Barbara Schleifer Clinic in the Jewish community, Jewish Family Child Services. There's many agencies. Yellow Brick House, they have a wonderful resource center as well. But we need more shelters. Recently, they had North York Women's Shelter, a reopening of North York Women's Shelter. But we need to do some more to help other people. And we also need to keep in mind, there are men out there as well who need also, I wear two different hats. I can't just say that here, it's all black and white. Percentages, probably a big difference, but we need to create a more adequate system. And we're actually working with, right now, Jennifer Viater Kagan. Her little daughter, Kiara, was, I would say she was killed a few years ago, 1 year ago.
Last year, it was last winter.
It was February, yeah.
2020.
Yeah, and we need to bring more awareness about domestic abuse, and Jennifer is doing a wonderful work right now. We need more politicians join her movement. She has a social media group called Court Says. We need more judges to be trained on domestic abuse. We need more lawyers to be more objective and have a knowledge about domestic abuse, because it's a serious issue which could create so many obstacles in the future because the children are involved.
Yeah, and they repeat the cycle too.
And then there's that whole problem of, if you ignore the little things turn into the big things.
Absolutely.
So when somebody abuses animals, for example, eventually it escalates. And
eventually they're going to be a serial killer, because that seems to be one of the signs of being a psychopath, is they abuse animals and their children.
But I think, Leanne, I'd like you to speak to this. Domestic violence finally was introduced into the family law act, into the changes, March 1st
to the Divorce
this year.
Act. Yeah.
Sorry,
this year?
2021, okay? Finally. So we don't really know what it's going to mean, what it's going to look like.
Right.
It's great because at least it's written in there, so there's some semblance of hope that
there's a recognition and a definition.
What's really going to happen, we don't know. It's premature.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's a great first step that it's actually being recognized, and the definition of it goes beyond just physical violence to include, emotional abuse and financial
Sometimes
abuse.
Emotional abuse is even worse.
Yeah, because the physical scars, heal, but the emotional don't. And it's interesting because I was having this conversation with Jennifer just before you got here, and I was saying how, because I was a crown attorney and my specialty was domestic violence, I've had a lot of training in the area, and I brought that to my family law practice. And I feel like I just kind of take for granted that other lawyers understand this stuff and know the flags and know the questions to ask. And, what we were saying is I feel I'm taking it for granted, but actually my understanding from, Jennifer, and from what you're saying is a lot of lawyers maybe don't, and judge, which is interesting as well, because
coercive control, emotional belittling, degrading, power imbalances, financial
gaslighting,
abuse.
when
Yeah,
the woman
for
is
sure.
feeling guilty. I do want to also mention that how important it is to look at it in a cultural context. And I'm talking about get.
Yes.
I'm talking about agunot, which is
Explain.
Jewish and Muslim women. If they are not, I think a lot more difficult for a Jewish woman. If they are not given a religious divorce, she is a hostage for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very difficult process because I have gone through it for 9 years. For me, it was a little bit more difficult because I am a Middle Eastern Jew. So in the Middle Eastern religious law, men can remarry and he doesn't need a Jewish divorce from a wife. So it took me 9 years. And then finally, I don't remember whether it was in 2001, I think John Sertash and Judith Halsman were part of this process. Right now we have a law in Canada, Ontario court. If you don't give Jewish religious divorce, you're not able to get a civil divorce. And we have a couple of women in a group still dealing with it, and some men just don't care. They're holding them hostage. They're holding their children hostage. And this is an issue. We need a movement to stop this abuse, because continuing abuse after leaving an abuser, it's very tricky, and the religious leaders need to get involved as well. This is very patriarchal, the law that supports men and is not helping women. I've always advocated, because I've gone through it for 9 years. It's a miracle that I was able to. I'm not a religious person, but I just wanted to feel free. I resented the fact that I had to be a hostage, just in case if I wanna, according to religious law, if I wanted to have a child for myself, my child would have been considered illegitimate. So we need to pay attention to the little details as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that there's not enough education, surrounding, for example, that issue. I mean, I know myself, I've had that come up with a few of my clients, but that wasn't something I had any training or understanding of at all until it first came up, and I had to learn more about it. But you see women like wanting to just sacrifice money and other things just to get and that shouldn't be happening either.
I have one mom, she had to sign a shared custody agreement because for Jewish people called get, and for Muslims called talaq. So
how do you pronounce
talaq?
Talaq?
T-A-L-A-G, talaq. And the religious court, Jewish religious court, promised her, made some promises. I don't want to actually say something that maybe didn't happen, but according to her, that she signed the papers thinking that he's going to give her get. She still doesn't have it. She still doesn't have it.
Esther, you're amazing. I can
Thank
speak to
you
you forever.
Yes.
And
we do always.
advocacy-
Whenever we go for lunch, we speak forever.
That's right. But the advocacy and
Thank you.
the help you provide to not only people that, in most areas are okay, but to people that are really marginalized and abused.
Thank you.
And your passion.
Thank you.
Your passion is infectious.
I wouldn't be able to do it without people like you and so many others. But I do want to mention also a very important information for refugee and immigrant women who are dealing with domestic abuse. In 2019, I think July 30th, there's a new law that says that they don't have to live with their abuser if they sponsor them or if they're refugee. The Canadian government will help those women as well. It's very important for them because they stay thinking that they will be deported.
Yeah.
And that's a very important information I wanted to
Thank you for
disclose to the
sharing
viewers
that.
as well. Thank
That's
you
so
really
much.
important. Where do people get a hold of you if they want to find you?
Speak to Jennifer Barkin.
Speak to me, contact me, I'll pass it on.
Yeah, I mean, I have 5,000 followers. It's very difficult to add me on Facebook, but they could always get in touch.
And if you
with
want to be part of Single Mothers in Toronto, you can contact me through Family Matters Mediators and Counselors on Facebook, and I will bring it over to Esther.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing this important information.
Thank you. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
You're both wonderful.
And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. I'm Leanne Townsend.
And I'm Jennifer Barkin.
And we'll see you next time.